There was a time when he believed something was wrong with him. Not loudly. Not dramatically. But in the quiet moments. Friday nights when his phone stayed still. Weekends when everyone else seemed to belong somewhere, and he didn't. People laughing in groups. Photos filled with faces he didn't recognize. Conversations he was never part of. At first, he thought it was just timing. Then he thought maybe he needed to try harder. But over time, something strange happened. He stopped chasing people. And slowly, his circle became smaller. At first, that felt like failure. Because everything he had ever been taught said the same thing. More friends means success. Bigger circle means happiness. Constant company means you're doing well in life. But his experience didn't match that story. Because even when he was around people, he often felt unseen. Like conversations were happening, but not with him. Just around him. Until one night, something shifted. He met someone older. Quieter. Observant. And that person asked him a question he wasn't ready for. Why do you think being alone means something is wrong with you? He didn't answer. The man didn't push. He just said something simple. Some people don't lose friends. They lose noise. That sentence didn't make sense at first. But it stayed. And over time, he started noticing something deeper. People like him, the ones with small circles, weren't always broken. They were just different. And those differences weren't random. They were patterns. Rare ones. 1. They see people too clearly. He began to notice it. Within minutes of meeting someone, he could sense inconsistencies. A smile that didn't match the eyes. Words that didn't match behavior. Energy that shifted depending on who was watching. Most people ignored these things. But he couldn't. Once you start seeing patterns in people, it becomes impossible to unsee them. And when you see too clearly, illusions disappear. And so do many connections built on them. 2. They don't stay where energy feels wrong. Earlier, he used to force himself to stay. In conversations that felt empty. In friendships that felt heavy. In environments that drained him. Just to avoid being alone. But something changed. He started leaving earlier. Replying less. Explaining nothing. Not because he hated people. But because he started noticing something important. Peace doesn't announce when it leaves. But chaos always does. And slowly, he learned to choose peace over presence. 3. Small talk feels unnatural. He could do it. But it never felt real. Talking about random people. Repeating stories that meant nothing. Filling silence just to avoid discomfort. It felt like performance. What he actually wanted were conversations that mattered. About people. About thoughts. About life. About why humans behave the way they do. But those conversations are rare. Because depth requires honesty. And honesty requires vulnerability. And most people avoid both. So he found himself in silence more often than speech. Not because he had nothing to say. But because he refused to say something meaningless. 4. They don't need validation anymore. There was a phase when he needed approval. Messages. Replies. Attention. Reactions. But slowly, he started noticing something uncomfortable. No amount of validation ever stays full. It always resets. So he stopped chasing it. Stopped performing. Stopped explaining. Stopped proving. And something unexpected happened. The less he needed people. The less people could define him. And that made some people uncomfortable. Because society is used to people who need acceptance. Not people who no longer depend on it. 5. They choose depth over everything. He used to think friendship was about numbers. More people meant more connection. But life slowly corrected that belief. Because numbers don't guarantee understanding. Presence doesn't guarantee loyalty. And closeness doesn't guarantee truth. So he changed his standard. One real connection became enough. One honest conversation became rare and valuable. And as his standards rose, his circle naturally shrank. Not because he had less to offer, but because he stopped accepting anything less than real. Years later, he finally understood something he couldn't see before. He wasn't losing people. He was losing noise. And in that silence, he found something unexpected. Clarity. He started understanding people better. Understanding him better. And understanding what actually matters in relationships. So if you find yourself with few or no friends, don't rush to label it as a flaw. Sometimes it's not a sign of weakness. It's a sign of awareness. Awareness of what drains you. Awareness of what doesn't belong in your life. Awareness of what you will no longer tolerate. Because not everyone is meant to be surrounded by many people. Some people are meant to see clearly first. And choose carefully after. And that path might feel quiet. But it often leads to something most people never reach. Peace that doesn't depend on anyone else.